Well, there we are then. That was Ninja Morris Men. Awesome. What a movie, what a movie. We are back at the Romford, the film festival, and we've just watched feature Morris Men, and now we are sitting down with executive producer, choreographer, and actor as well of the movie Morris Men, Peter Mahoney. How are you today?
Very good, thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you very much for screening Morris Men. It's been great to see it on a quality big screen, and really appreciate everyone coming to watch it. Look forward to feedback, good or bad. We all know you can always improve a film, and ultimately it's you, the audience, that decides, it decides whether you think it's any good or not.
I'm really interested to know how you came onto this project, because as soon as I read the synopsis of Ninja Morris Men, I mean, come on. So how did you come on board to this?
Well, the idea for the project is from Dom Morgan, DB Morgan, and I just happened to be flicking on Facebook, as you do, scrolling along, and I saw this advert for Ninja Morris Men. I thought, this looks interesting. I think it was a Kickstarter or crowdfund or whatever. And Dom had listed a load of martial arts that he thought should be involved. And I thought, well, actually, with the sticks that Morris Men use and the stick fighting that we do in the Filipino martial arts, there was a natural affinity, there was a natural link. So out of the blue, I rang him up and said, can I come and see you? He said, okay. Got on the train, came down from the Midlands down London across to Colchester, then to Clacton, and met him and his then lead lady and lead man on the beach. And we did a bit of stick fighting, which convinced Dom that Eskrima, or Kali or Arnis, was going to be the appropriate martial art to base the Morris fighting on.
And how long does something like that take to choreograph from start to finish? Like, you training the actors and then getting into the movie, how long does it take?
Well, as with a lot of films, we were disrupted by COVID. So we were originally going to film in April, I think it was around April 21, and then we were locked down, as I'm sure we all remember. So I went back to my day job of intensive care and anaesthetics, and we had to wait until the October until we could get access to the hotels again and the parks, the caravan parks to accommodate people. So in the meantime, Jamie Chambers was running what he called Brawl Academy. And at the start of the film, Tommy is a very instinctive, aggressive fighter, brawling effectively. So Jamie was working with his colleagues, Ed and Justin and Eloise, to create the brawling fights, while we within Warriors of Screamer were working on choreographing and blocking out the group fights, the technical fights. So what we would do, we would meet and within COVID regulations and block out what we wanted to do, how we would fight as individuals, or how we'd fight with 2 or 3 people, film it, and then put it on a shared drive on Facebook that others had access to say, this is our concept. And the other thing I would do, I'd find fight scenes which I thought were rubbish on mainstream movies and recommend that the team looked at that and say, I think this is rubbish. I'd like you to have a look at it and see if you can work out why I think it's rubbish. Or I'd find a good fight scene and say, I think this is a good scene. Have a look and see why I think it's good. And what I objected to was fights where people pause, where there's multiple opponents and they all wait. They don't sort of come in together. So we were trying to achieve something that was gritty and but not completely polished, so you could relate to the randomness and the rough and tumble of it.
So out of all the actors, who took to it the best, the most?
Well, Elle and Jamie were training hard in their own time, but the majority of the Screamer fighters are actually instructors from Warriors of Screamer, who appear in various guises during the film. Sometimes they're goodies, sometimes they're baddies, sometimes they're masked, sometimes they're not. And the advantage of that is you've got people who know about being hit, don't mind being hit, are quite used to being whacked by sticks, and don't burst into tears. And there's a lot to be said for that when you're doing that you have people who are fairly robust and can take a hit, take a fall. And I accept that's perhaps not the way things are always done on set, on screen, and you do have to preserve your actors. But it did mean that with the guys, we could actually do fairly robust fight scenes. And, they seem to enjoy it. I've got James, you're in the audience. You can say you're not too badly damaged.
No, I came out with no straight, so I think it went very successfully.
That's reassuring. Phew.
Clearly weren't doing it right then. And you said before that this is the first time you've seen it on a massive screen like this, with quality sound like that. What, when you were watching it now, stands out as your favourite moment of choreography?
I like the pub. I like the pub fight. We were originally due to be in a billiard hall in the middle of Clacton, and we were set up. We had permission, and everyone was positioned, ready to go. And then the owner or person who was managing it decided he didn't like it, didn't like what we were doing, and withdrew permission. So as you imagine, you're just about to shoot a big scene with all these people and all these things planned. And so we had to withdraw, go back to our base, and our base was a disused NHS building in the middle of Clacton, get everybody fed. And Dom had spent a lot of time before the movie going around looking at other environments and had a good relationship with Tendring Council. And there was a pub that had closed a matter of weeks before, the Never Say Die. And we got permission to use the Never Say Die within about an hour. And then we had to drive everybody across there, really appreciate the environment and decide where everyone's going to be placed, and think about the fight we'd laid out and where those components would sit within the pub. So clearly there's elements we could improve and elements that, if we were doing it again with a huge budget, that I'd definitely like to improve. But given the short notice nature of the redeployment and the new environment and the fact that the actors and the fighters had to get used to it with no notice, I think that's my favourite scene. And the other thing that I really enjoyed was the support from the community in Jaywick. Jaywick gets a bad press, but all the people round and about were extremely welcoming, made sure power was turned on, got water turned back on forwards, and couldn't have been more hospitable. So we got tremendous support from the majority of the people in Clacton and the people in Jaywick.
And you're letting people see the movie now. Everybody's getting a chance to see it. What kind of comments are you getting? What are people liking about the movie?
We've had some very positive comments from the Morris community. So that's real Morris sides dancing in the film. Some members of the Morris community have said they really like it because it shows the origins of Border Morris. Others said they're not going to watch it. They think it sounds too violent, even though they haven't seen it, and it doesn't portray their art in the correct way. But the majority of comments we've had have been positive. And I would encourage Morris dancers who haven't seen it, give it a look. If you don't like it, accept it. But we are trying to be true to the origins of Morris and the earthy, gritty history of Morris, and the fact that many of the border sides also had additional functions, shall we say, of local enforcement. So there's more to the sort of the construct of the Morris dancing than is perhaps first evident.
We're going to jump to audience questions in a quick second, but firstly, are we going to get a Morris Men too?
Well, I'd love to. When Charlie Bond, it's ambiguous if Charlie survived or not. It's Charlie's character, Mandy. It's ambiguous if Jamie's character, Tommy, survives. So there's a lot of potential. And we had some other fantastic actors and actresses in the film whose characters only appeared briefly. Earl's police superintendent just appeared very briefly in this final edit. So I think there are characters who could all have their own story arc, and there's a lot more we could do with them.
Heard it here first, that's a yes. Right, let's go to the audience. Anybody got any questions?
I just wanted to know if you could elaborate a bit, as you mentioned, in terms of the Morris history. So how it kind of stemmed, you said there's some history related to it, so it seems quite almost real in terms of the design of the Morris Men to the film now, or was it a fabulous imagination of the idea of turning Morris Men into kind of secret assassins?
I mean, Dom's construct was obviously fantastic, the idea of this secret guild of assassins moving around in modern Morris sides. But if you look at Morris dances and look at the underlying stick movements, these are martial movements. These are people who were trained in martial movements, knew how to use swords, knew how to use sticks, and have it really sort of concealed, choreographed within a dance. And you can see that in Indian martial arts, you see that in Filipino martial arts, you see that in Indonesian martial arts. So when you see this type of movements in whatever culture, there is some underlying martial application. And the whole history of Morris in the UK is ambiguous. If you look at various histories, some say it was sort of fertility dances, some say it was more martial dances, some say there's different origins, sort of the Lancashire clog type dances versus the Cotswold white outfit type dances versus the border dances. But we were interested in the border sides because of their dark costumes, their unusual masks. And we found good evidence that, as I said previously, that there were elements of Morris members, Morris sides being used as enforcers early on in the history of Morris dancing. And that just seemed to chime very nicely with this construct of this hidden group of assassins. I'd love there to be hidden groups of assassins in modern Morris sides.
We've got one more question.
I think the best recent one is probably, in terms of realism, is probably Nobody. Again, there's a grittiness in the movement and a reality in the short, sharp movements, and the protagonist actually takes hits. I think elements of the John Wick series are very good. I don't really like the fly-by-wire martial arts movies. I think they sort of make it all a bit silly. If you want to go back to the early 70s, when as a young child I was sneaking into X-rated films, I'd say Enter the Dragon would be one of the sort of seminal works which has changed the way people thought about martial arts. And there's a lot of good fight scenes in other movies. Hannah, the film, not the TV series. The Carly, the screamer in Hannah, I think has done extremely well.
Well, with that, I want to thank you for submitting the movie to the festival, letting us show it, and most of all, being here today.
Thank you all for your attention, and thank you very much for staying and watching.